Hi there, I'm Richard Hill, the host of eCommerce One, and welcome to episode 183. In this episode, I speak with Ben Lang, ex-Olympic rower with well over 10 years in senior leadership at some of the biggest e-commerce tech brands, now heading up partnerships in Northern Europe and Dach for Shopify. Ben steps us through e-commerce trends that he's seeing with successful clients across his global portfolio. Now, when stores hit that 5, 10, 20, 30 mil plateau, Ben's advice on where to focus, and 3 things that companies can do right now to cut their costs but still grow their business, and how Ben has taken his experience as an Olympic athlete and translated that into a fantastic career and focus in e-commerce. And of course, so much more in this one. If you enjoyed this episode, hit the subscribe or follow button wherever you are listening to this podcast, so you're always the first to know when a new episode is released. Now, let's head over to this fantastic episode. Hi, Ben, and welcome to eCommerce One podcast.
Yes, thanks for having me, Richard.
No problem at all. Well, it's looking very, very sunny where you are. I'm a little bit jealous.
Yeah, it's sunny Amsterdam here. Doesn't look like much, but it's definitely good to have some sun.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to a bit of sun myself. I've got a nice couple of trips coming up. Obviously, we're in April now when this episode airs, and it's a beautiful time of year, I think, in most parts of the world. So, looking forward to a couple of breaks myself. Right. So, I think before we get into some Q&A, it'd be great for you to introduce yourself, Ben, to our listeners and how you got into the world of e-commerce.
Well, so yeah, I'm Ben. I'm leading the Northern Europe partnership team within Shopify as well as the Dach team. So I've been working in that ecosystem for quite some time now. First, indeed, at Shopify lately, but before that, I was working on the tech partner side of Shopify on the fintech world with Modi, a Dutch payment service provider. I've been also working on the MarTech before, been working in the telco in years before. And prior to that, I was also a high-level athlete, so different background here, but came to love the e-commerce landscape and the commerce landscape and the tech side.
Yeah.
So, yeah, here I am.
Wow. So, yeah, I mean, obviously looking through your sort of LinkedIn, if you like, and obviously, yeah, you've worked at a lot of the big tech that a lot of our listeners will know and use, which is great. But Olympic rower, I mean, I was going to talk about this at the end, but obviously that's a serious level of commitment, Olympic rowing. How did you get into the rowing?
Well, like life, right? I started because my brother started. He was having back problems, and rowing is good for the backs. So he started like that, and then I followed him. And, I fell in love with the sport and understood that I could maybe do something there. So just kept pushing. And, so I finally did the Olympics in Beijing 2008 and Rio 2016, so it was nice.
And how did that go?
Well, the Olympics not as well as I would have expected. I didn't got any medal there, but I did some medals in the World Championships, World Cups, European Championships, and different competitions. So I'm missing one medal, but I'm having some others. So quite happy about that.
Wow, that's an incredible story, isn't it? I mean, rowing. I bought a rowing machine during lockdown, and it's a level of fitness, isn't it? Rowing, I think, I love rowing. I definitely don't do it enough, but it's when you watch the Oxford-Cambridge rowing race, that looks like serious commitment.
Yeah,
and obviously, doing it in the Olympics, that's a fantastic level, isn't it? Wow, incredible.
Yeah, it's like 30 hours of training a week, and level of commitment is quite high. So we learn a lot around, persistence and hard work and teamwork too, which is an important component also in our industry, where you need to work collaboratively with a lot of different folks. So definitely something I'm using a lot on the daily base now too. Yeah,
it translates very well to sort of heading up. Obviously a very successful part of Shopify, for example. Obviously, like you say, working with a team. Yeah, working in different conditions, under different conditions, with different people with different strengths that need different support, and absolutely. Yeah. So obviously now working very much on the partnership side with Shopify. Obviously, a lot of I would say in the last sort of definitely seems to be a lot of updates on Shopify, a lot of big changes, in terms of the tech. What are some of the fundamental sort of features that have been added in the last sort of 3 or 4 months that maybe quite a few listeners might not be aware of?
Yeah, well, Shopify is evolving super fast, right? The first thing that Shopify is standing out for is our capacity to innovate, right? We are moving super fast. And for instance, in January, we've released 100 new features throughout the Shopify editions, winter editions. So that's a moment, we have twice a year where we're announcing a few features, like not just a few, but actually more than 100 per editions. So, and indeed, quite a lot of the features that we've been announcing on the last editions are things that really are moving the needle when it comes to unified commerce experience. So how to make sure that the brand experience is the same across all the touch points you have, making sure that you have the tech stack that's supporting higher conversion, customizations, B2B, a lot of, those elements that are quite important. So omnichannel as well as customization, for instance, one of the important elements. AI is also another one. So there is definitely a lot of different features that has been released there. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems to be every other month, I think. There's more so this last 6 months. I follow a lot of the senior leadership on LinkedIn, and obviously we've had quite a few different people on the podcast over the years, and it just seems to be more prolific than ever this last sort of probably 4 months. Like say 100 features released in January. But yeah, that sort of omni-channel piece, that that sort of I think it's trying to attract all different retailers. Obviously, we got a lot of we have a lot of clients. For example, you talked about omnichannel and retail, and a lot of clients that have got the traditional stores, for example. They're maybe newer to the e-commerce side of things when they maybe got 50 stores or whatever it may be. But then obviously trying to tie in that experience between store and online, it has been and can be quite challenging. Obviously, quite a lot of the newer features have made that easier.
Yeah, for sure. And I think we went from a world where we've opposed, offline and online quite a lot, which doesn't make any sense to me. We're and actually there is way more channels than just the store and the web shop, right? There is also all the social commerce layer, the B2B layer, marketplaces, and all that. So you do have multiple channels that you can leverage, and Shopify is having integration with everything there. So you can definitely have your POS system on your store, or pop-up POS if you want, or you can equipy thousands of shops that you have with Shopify systems, but also having your e-commerce part, or as well as integration with all the social platform. Because ultimately what you want to do is, instead of trying to pull your clients toward your web shop or into your store, is to be where they are, right? If they're on the street, you want to have a store. If they are in shopping online, you want to be there. If they are in the social platform, you want to be there. You don't want to pull them, you want to be there where they are. And I think that's a super important element that we're seeing also currently, is how do we make sure that we maximize the brand experience across all the touch points, because ultimately this is what brings customer loyalty, and everything that goes with it. So definitely something we're pushing a lot on currently.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the big difference between a lot of the successful merchants over the coming year or so. That experience ultimately of a client where, like you say, people still like going in shops, don't they? Is an element. But they want to obviously translate that experience when you go online, when you go on a third-party site, and that merchant's products are on that site, the different marketplaces, making all that data, and then you launch. We're seeing more and more merchants launching the B2B or the D2C, depending on which way around you've started, sort of thing. To having potentially dozens and dozens of bites of the cherry potentially. Whereas if you've not got that experience, you bought from one, and then you log on to this website and your previous orders aren't there, or obviously that's a simple thing, but B2B pricing, it sort of seems quite obvious saying it on this podcast, obviously with the different guests we've had on, but the amount of people that have got a disjointed experience, it's very surprising. But obviously now Shopify is making that very easy. But obviously there's a lot of other platforms out there, Ben, that also do quite a lot of the things we're talking about. What would you say makes Shopify different from other website platforms?
Well, I think we've discussed a bit that, but innovation is definitely one thing that is putting us aside, right? We're I think the fastest moving object on the tech planet currently. We are investing loads of money in research and development, and that department is headed by our founder, Tobias Lüchter, that founded Shopify 20 years ago. He's the head of research and development. We've invested something like 2 billion in the last 12 months when it comes to R&D. So definitely that, brings a lot of innovation to the market.
Yeah.
And in a context where, time to market becomes way more important. We know that the macroeconomics are what it is. Interest rates are climbing. Everything like that is creating more pressure on the budget. So having a platform that is helping you to innovate is definitely something that's super important. Then there is a scale aspect. Shopify is having, more than 10% of the e-commerce traffic in the US that's going through our system. And in the EMEA, it's climbing like crazy. We've just surpassed the 1 billion sales mark last year on Shopify system on total sales. So the scalability and the capacity to handle high traffic of Shopify is something that put us, aside of the competition. And I think all of that is supported by great tech, but also a great ecosystem. We have amazing partners, and I'm leading the partnership team, so you might feel like I'm biased, but I'm not. We have amazing partners, both from the technical side and also from the commercial side. We have great agencies that are working with us. We have really a really nice ecosystem that is adding on top of the tech the right layer of services that is required to have a successful merchant. So I think all those elements are putting us aside from the competition. Indeed, there is way more, but I would say those are the three when I see.
Yeah, it seems to be. I mean, like I said before we hit record, our agency is about 15 years old now, and I think our sort of stats are about 70% of our clients are Shopify. Wow. And we were looking at a list of prospective clients yesterday. We've sort of built our sort of ultimate 100 list yesterday of clients that we would love to work with. And about, again, 65, 70, I think it was 70% were on Shopify. So I'm always, we're not sort of, as an agency, we'll work with most platforms, to be fair, but Shopify, we just seem to have the market. Shopify shares seem to be doing very well. I have to say that's something I'm quite keen on keeping an eye on every morning. I'm always looking on my app, but I have shares of all the platforms that are floated. I've got most of them, I think, but Shopify I've had for about 4 years now, so that's just before lockdown, just as lockdown hit. So some nice peaks sort of mid-lockdown on the share price, which was nice, but I think... I still believe
we do have great competition too, and I have to say that it's interesting to see how Shopify has evolved along the last years, right? The positioning around the enterprise segment is also something that we've been pushing a lot. So we definitely are the only player playing in all the merchant segments, which is fairly interesting also. Definitely a nice momentum for Shopify, that's for sure.
So, I mean, I'm sold. I think the listeners are sold. There's obviously there's options, but obviously fantastic platform, fantastic innovation, continual innovation. So obviously you're seeing a lot of trends in terms of what successful merchants are doing across your portfolio of partners and obviously sites that your partners manage. What are some of the trends that you're seeing? I mean, you touched on a few there, but what are some of the trends that you're seeing that your successful merchants are sort of, pushing at the moment that are helping them be successful?
Yeah, well, I think we've touched a bit about that. I think first there is a context, right? We are seeing the global context is a bit specific. Regulation is becoming more complex. Interest rates are climbing, inflation is climbing, and customer behavior is also changing. Customer loyalty is harder to get because we have way more capacity to buy there. So and that's, if you combine that with lack of innovation sometimes, as well as disconnected customer experience across the different touch points, then you have a growing need for business to build differentiated value and also a faster value because the market is moving way faster now, and that with a lower cost of ownership. So we're seeing that a lot as a context, and for us, indeed, that's plugged really well into the fact that we need to have a unified commerce experience. So we've talked about the brand experience, having the same brand experience across all the touch points. For instance, you're going into a store, you want to have your everything that you bought into the online. being gathered in the same data point, where you can, customize experience in store based on who you have in your store, right? So that's from a customer standpoint. It's fairly logical to understand, but there is also from a merchant standpoint, you want to aggregate that data from all the different touch points to be able to understand exactly who is your audience and where you want to push, right? And maximizing that is helping you to have more informed decision and be closer to market, time to market, taking the right decision at the right point. So we're seeing that a lot. And we're seeing also that the B2B elements, I've talked about it, but it's such a massive opportunity for a lot of brands, because there is no reason why you couldn't sell throughout the B2B elements. For instance, we have a SodaStream in Europe that moved to Shopify lately, and they're seeing quite a big impact in revenue by doing that. So we're seeing a lot of trends such as that one I just mentioned. So unified commerce, B2B are two that we are seeing, and are quite based on the macroeconomics that we're seeing also currently. So time to market, reduced total cost of ownership.
Yeah, so I guess how many people are listening right now? How can they add a layer in potentially B2B? I think it's not as difficult as definitely even a year ago. Obviously, the tech is there. Obviously there's different elements to that, whether that's pricing structure, dealing with purchase orders, different payment options. But yeah, I think something that needs to be explored.
Complex, huh? It was a complex thing before, right? I think that channel with the expectations that you have, and that channel is a bit specific. Now I think we've invested quite a lot in making that experience a simple one, and to make sure that you increase conversion there, because the opportunity is also massive. So
And potentially bigger orders, in terms of the impact on cash flow and things like that. Obviously there's a few different things there, but fantastic. So we talk quite a lot about obviously growth on the podcast specifically, but hitting those plateaus, when we you launch your store, and you hit your first million, then you hit your first 5 million, then you hit the 10 mil. Let's take 10 million as a turnover figure. It's a bit of an arbitrary number, really, because obviously that's nothing to some people and everything to, the sort of smaller mid-market merchants. But you've hit 10 mil and you've sort of there, you're doing that circa 800 grand a month type turnover, 10 million a year, give or take. You're trying to get to that next, going from 10 to 15, 10 to 20. I mean, it's a similar question to before, unfortunately, but I think, I think the frustration with a lot of merchants is getting past certain plateaus. I think that's relatable to a lot of, whether that's business or life. So I guess maybe relatable to rowing back in the day where you're trying to hit the times and you're stuck on the 1 minute 10 and you try to get down to 1 minute 5. And how are we going to do that? That extra compound 2% effort here or 0.5%. So what would you say to those guys? They're stuck on 10 mil a year. They have been for a couple of years. Is it different thinking? Is it different tech?
Yeah, I think it's a large question, and indeed the answer is really hard to apply to everyone, right? So for me, the main topic is trying to understand, the data first, right? We're trying to get an understanding of what is performing well, what is not performing well. That's an obvious one, but to have that, you need to have the right data set. And that's why we've touched a bit about the multi-channel, omnichannel aspect of it, being able to gather the data from all different touch points, centralize that, make sure that you analyze that part. Well, if you see that B2B isn't working at all, and that's a big part of the investment, well, something might be worth changing there. Is it investing more? Is it changing your approach? But then understanding what is happening, I think, is paramount to being able to take the right informed decision. So I would say that's one. For me, there is also a big trend around, instead of trying to attract, trying to be where they are, right? And we're seeing a lot of brands that are doing amazing revenue throughout social channels, for instance. Having a deeper integration in TikTok, could definitely help. Having, your DIY shop and you want to do live shopping, on Google, and you need to have the right integration. With Shopify, you can shop directly on Google there and on YouTube, right? So these kind of things, understanding where they are, and then aligning the technology that will help you to go there. That's definitely, I think, something super important. And again, the brand experience is important there. Often, when you have that, that growth, and then you start to plateau, it means that your customer acquisition costs have been increasing. So you're like, okay, trying to spend more into getting more, and you have the Shopify OS update, the Apple OS updates that is creating more impact on the customer acquisition cost. So you need to think about what is the best way. For me, there is the topic around the brand experience, not for the sake of the brand experience, but to increase customer loyalty. Because there is one thing that is important is to get new clients in, but there is one thing that is even more important is keep them, right? And having specific brand experience, specific customer loyalty programs that can definitely help you to keep your client base there, avoiding churn and have repeating clients. That's super important. So having a brand experience that is leading that across all the touch points, give definitely, I think, the right, elements to understand where to invest and how to accelerate.
Yeah, no, I think that's fantastic. I think that loyalty piece is a theme we see a lot. We talk about it a lot, but it's ultimately, it's just simple in terms of getting people to come back and buy more, so that the just incredible experience, investing in that service, customer service, branding, obviously the brand element, personalized packaging is a great one with that, to get that personalized touch in the branding and the packaging, and then obviously, right?
You need to understand the data to be able to say, well, that specific side of my audience is loving that part of my brand. If you're doing like just newsletter to everyone, maybe you're missing the importance of that specific segment, and then you can create specific content for them, specific engagement layer for them, specific offer for them, and then you're creating way more value for them instead of just wearing down. So there is a content piece of it, there is a marketing piece of it, and Richard, you know that better than I do. So that's part in the customer loyalty is so important.
No, fantastic. Some great points there.
Now, you might be looking for an SEO boost, a down-to-earth digital PR campaign to share your story, or maybe just some straightforward technical help to amp up your performance. Now, that's where eCom Now comes in. A partner that's all about making things easier for your online store. Our services cover everything from creating professional content for your e-commerce categories to refining your product descriptions. Now, whether you're just starting out or have been in it for a while, we're here to deliver real, impactful results that add to your bottom line without unnecessary commitments. You can order one-off or multiple projects with a quick turnaround. Simply choose what you need.
We've hit those plateaus, but there's ideas there to obviously push through. But also we've got to think about, the reality is, there's potentially rising costs in certain areas, whether that's, looking at logistics, whether that's, in people, whether that's in, all sorts of things. There's all sorts of challenges out there. What would you say about sort of cost savings in e-commerce stores? Have you got sort of any stories of where there's been sort of big savings been had? Because I think it's quite, certain things spring to mind for me, when you get used to doing things a certain way, really bad cliche, but ultimately, I think you start running a business in certain departments, certain way, but quite often when you start digging into things, obviously there's huge cost savings quite often. But is there any specific areas and specific things that you would recommend to our listeners about savings?
Yeah, I think, well, there are quite a few options there. I think investing in customer loyalty is always a good one, right? Doesn't feel like it's cutting cost, but I think the customer loyalty to bridging what we've just discussed before, I think is an important one. Indeed, reevaluating the tech stack. Well, for me, it's an obvious one. We are seeing that daily. We have lots of brands that are coming to Shopify because they want to reduce their total cost of ownership.
Yeah.
When you're focusing more in maintaining the light on rather than focusing on innovation, this is, when things should trigger you. And we're seeing a lot of brands. I don't know, for instance, Daniel Wellington, the brand, the watch brand.
Watches,
watches. They replatformed to Shopify, and they saved like something like $500K per year just by moving from one platform to another.
Yeah.
So evaluating your tech stack. And that should fit your needs. That's something important, right? So there is the e-commerce tech stack, but there is also all the apps that you have around you. So making sure that you're challenging your tech stack always, I think it's an important component to be able to make sure that you're always focusing on innovation, focusing on future-proofing your business rather than maintaining the light on. And there is one thing also that I think is super important. As a business owner, you should be ruthless with your ICP, your ideal client profile. You should be really, really focusing on that. I think it's super easy to get distracted sometimes and spend a lot of money in terms on acquiring clients that are not core to your ICP. But at the end of the day, it can open up new market, which is great. But if that's not intentional, then you should really be, focusing a lot on your ICP. To me, ICP is a key component of cutting down the noise around it to really master one element. And as soon as you've mastered that, then you can expand your ICP and have other clients that you want to go after.
I think that's always difficult for the business owner, isn't it? Because there's always the shiny objects that, I've seen these. Hang on a minute, we haven't mastered this. We can do a lot better with this. We can sweat the margin on this. We can buy better on this. We can promote better on this. We can create better content on this. We're doing an 8 out of 10 job here, and we're trying to go over here. Well, hang on, let's get to 9.5, 10 out of 10 on this particular product, whether that's a product set, the tech stack, it's interesting.
It's always simple to talk during like a podcast about what you do to cut costs and grow, right? The reality is that it's way more complex than that.
Yeah.
And to maneuver that complexity, I think one element that actually is key is to be surrounded also with people that can help you to understand how to prioritize that. There is no shame on asking for help. Quite the opposite, I think. All the successful brands that we're seeing are brands and brand owner that tends to share more, right? To be really keen on having partners around them, but also mentors, being able to be supported. How? Because we are never stronger than when we are a group.
I think that'll resonate with quite a lot of the agency owners as well that are listening, because obviously as an agency owner, I think, it's if you're very specialist with a very specialist niche, whether that's e-commerce is the broader niche, but then, maybe a Shopify development company, that's a very, and you only work with certain types of brands, but then all of a sudden you get an inquiry for, another platform. It's 150 grand build. You think, should we, shouldn't we? And then we will. And next thing you know, you've maybe lost sight of 3 or 4 Shopify deals that you had over here.
I think it's a tough one, right? And it's indeed there is opportunities. You should be able to capture them. You should not, no, it's not my ICP. I'm not doing it. Things are evolving there, so you should be able to de-risk your business and make sure that you're multiplying the opportunities. But sometimes it can be, can have more bad impact than positive ones. So you need to balance the short-term impact to the long-term vision that you have, and that's not an easy one to do.
Sure. No, it's not, is it? If you've got capacity in the team, or in a warehouse, and and if you can sell certain things, we'll do this, but we know this potentially is temporary, or this is a test. And hopefully will align with the main business in time. So it's try to juggle things.
Time boxing thing is for me like super important. High level sports, I've been doing that a lot myself, like time boxing my different activities to make sure that everything was fitting. Time boxing test that you're doing, time boxing, like those kind of motions that you want to try. Put a deadline to it, just to make sure that somehow it doesn't become a noise around what you do as a core, and you can measure it. So I would say time boxing and then putting deadlines on things definitely can help on evaluating opportunities that you might have as a business.
Fantastic. So replatforming, I think that's something that probably every single listener will have gone through or will be going through for the second or third time, depending on where they're at. What advice would you have for sort of firms looking at replatforming in the next sort of 6-12 months?
I think first of all, replatforming is a pain, right? Like if someone is telling you that will be a smooth selling, and I guess people that are listening to us, they will have a smile on their face, because everyone is promising that it will be like the easiest part, and it's not, right? It's a business transformation. Replatforming is a business transformation, and we have to acknowledge that. What we're trying to do at Shopify is to make things as simple as possible, but doesn't mean that they are simple. They are simpler, but they are not simple. And I think going deep into, understanding why you need to replatform is important. For me, one important trigger you can put all the the economics layer to it. You'll win conversion rates. You'll increase your brand experience, whatever. You can put all that. But ultimately, what could be the trigger for you is that when you feel you're focusing more on maintaining the light on rather than innovating, pushing forward and testing, trying new things. When you feel you're spending more time on the first element I've mentioned, I think that should be a trigger to you. Should be, I'm spending like 10K a month into hosting. I'm spending that amount just in security patch. Those elements that are not adding value to your business. They are just here to make sure that your web shop or your store is still surviving. That's, I think, currently in the macroeconomics where time to market is so important, I'm not sure it's the right thing to do, right? You want to invest that money into campaigns. You want to get that money invested, I don't know, for instance, into the test that we've mentioned, like flying something new. So reallocating your budget toward bulletproofing, future-proofing your business, I think that's the right trigger. But indeed, you need to plan for something that will be a necessary pain, but a painful process. So we're trying to make it as smooth as possible. We have lots of brands that are migrating, on the replatforming, takes 3 to 6 months, I would say, something like that, depending on the complexity you have, which is 2 to 3 times less than our competition. So you go faster, but it's still a digital transformation, which is exciting, but also sometimes complex.
Yeah, it's a big step, isn't it? We've got a couple of discussions on the go at the moment with clients. One of them's about 40 million a year, and they're on a bespoke platform. And what you were saying there was really that was resonating with me for them, because I know some of their costs are just shocking because of the customizations that are in there. There's very few people that can help them, so some of their like security challenges and all sorts of things that are they're almost like treading water with it, trying to make sure it's working on a daily basis. But then they need to move, but obviously then the concern around risk of moving a 30-40 million pounds, $50 million probably a year, $1 million a week type of operation, that transition from one to another. I think they've been looking at it for about a year. What would you say to that marketing manager that has got to present the case to move? How do they sort of present a better case to get a good buy-in from their management, from their ownership?
Good luck first. No, I'm kidding. No, I think there is a few elements. Indeed, you need to find proof points. And proof points, you can find loads of them, right? Understanding, okay, what are the similar brands that we're competing against? What did they do? Do we have examples of things that turn south, things that turn well? What are the different elements we have? And let's chat about it. Let's have conversation with some of maybe even competitors. Sometimes you can have conversation with them, depending on how healthy your relationship is with them, you can really avoid some of those gaps that, like a replatforming can bring. But ultimately, I think proof points is one, and being surrounded is another one. Finding the right partners is also quite key there. So having conversation with partners that have been handling hundreds of them, that's definitely going to remove some of the issues, and they are going also to be consulting you. They're going also to support you, and then they're saying, well, you should, with your specific setup, maybe that platform is better, maybe this one is better. They will be able to guide you through that, and also gather along the way the proof points that you need to build the internal process. So I would say, proof points and team around you. Leveraging the ecosystem is super important. I'm not saying that because I'm leading partnership team at Shopify, but partnership are so key to smooth experiences. So I can't recommend more to chat with partners.
I think there's always going to be a company that's been there and done it, if you like, no matter what size you are. So obviously looking at, like you say, looking at what people are doing that are ahead of you, and then obviously going and meeting not just one potential partner, whether that's, replatform, dev company, but several, and going to trade shows that are, like you say, that where you're going to meet multiple people, multiple conversations, get a feel for it, and then take those decision makers with you to some of these things eventually. And yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because it's not too bad a challenge when you're sort of $1 million and you're deciding on spending $200 a month. Maybe it's not such a big deal, but obviously replatforming, and then we look at what we do in the agency is we don't do the replatforms, but we work with a lot of agencies that do. But obviously the SEO piece, if you're 40% of the revenue, it's quite common from SEO and from organic, obviously retaining those rankings, retaining those search listings for key categories, products. And we could write a book on the horror stories of literally some of the shockers that we've had to try and rescue, and in some cases we've managed to, in some cases it's too late, sort of thing. So working with a strong SEO partner, it's quite often too late after the horse has bolted. So
but that's why you need to have the right partners around you, and it's really hard to understand all the implication of such a digital transformation. So that's why having people, investing on the discovery for me is super important. Going to a partner and not just jump straight to a solution, but like jump first into discovery, spending as long as you can into discovery to make sure that you're planning ahead the right thing, that you're not forgetting the SEO on your replatforming, because if you do that, then when you press live, might have some issues there, and you'll be like, well, performance are going down where we're hoping for them to go up, right? So those things that are super obvious to you, but there is a lot of other compartments to the success of replatforming there. So investing on that
discovery
phase is super important.
I think we do sort of see that where it quite often gets missed, or it's just a too small a piece, and then a lot of stuff gets missed. And I mean, maybe not so much at that size, but the briefs are shocking, but then that's not necessarily the merchant's challenge. A strong development agency should then spend time obviously on discovery. Obviously the merchant's got to commit to that time and the cost of that. As what normally happens is, we wanted this and we wanted that and we wanted this. Well, we didn't talk about that in the brief, so we didn't quote you for that, so now that's extra. And it's just like, not so much at the obviously 20, 30, 40, 50 million stage, but definitely I think on the smaller sort of 5, 10 million type level, quite a lot of stuff.
That's a great way to manage expectations also from a merchant side as well as from partner side, right? If you are investing a lot into discovery, things are planned, and there is no surprise. There is nothing worse than in the middle of a migration, discovering, we forgot about that. That's nightmare of everyone.
Where's the B2B? We didn't talk about it. But maybe in 3 years, you might not want to do it now, but you need to know you've got the capability. And if you do this, that, and the other now, that means it'll be literally very low cost when you do want to do it, just turning it on. And obviously it won't be that simple, but some time you'll have the capability to do it. We didn't realize that we can't list in, we need to deal with, I'm trying to think, all the different customs-ish challenges. So with payment-wise, we need to be able to do this, this, and this. Okay, so obviously lots of updates, as we touched on a couple of times this year already. But I'm excited for Shopify this year. What else? Maybe you could share a couple of things that are on the roadmap that are coming this year with Shopify that maybe aren't that known yet.
Yeah, well, there is definitely, as mentioned, there is a trend around the unified commerce elements, right? So going deeper in each one of them. For instance, point of sale is definitely something where we are pushing a lot. B2B is definitely something where you'll see a lot of new features that will be coming also our way. And I think Shopify has been investing heavily in the B2B functionalities, for instance, and we catched up on our competition on the last few years. That competition was great on the B2B. We were not a few years back. Now I feel we're ahead of the competition and we're on the trend to accelerate. So there is a lot of new things that are coming that are definitely into the innovation layer. So quite a few exciting stuff coming. We're also expanding our internationalization capacities. That's we have so many brands that are covering tens of countries. So we want to go deeper into addressing the specificities of each countries, and again, aligning that with our DNA, making things simpler and more impactful. So the team that you have can focus on really conversion optimization, increase on revenue. So those things are definitely things that we're investing heavily on, and then you can expect to have news fairly soon. And we have the next editions that is coming somewhere in June, I think. So there is not too long to wait to have another batch of 100 plus features that will be announced. So
now I'll tell you, well, when the features are released, does that correlate to any share changes very often? Do you know? I haven't really mapped it.
Yeah, well, definitely it's creating some attention, right? So people are looking at it, and it's always interesting to see all the feedback that we get from partners, from merchants, and the excitement. It's just insane when we are going through the Shopify editions. The next few days or weeks even, we are bombarded with questions, with excitement, and it's great. Honestly, it's great. And also with some of our competitors that are reaching out saying, "Oh, come on," So it's
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Ben, for coming on the show. I like to finish every episode with a book recommendation. Do you have a book to recommend to our listeners?
Well, I have a few there, but I think there is one. It might be a bit cheesy, but one that I really love that I'm using a lot, especially on the day where international is important. I think we need to be mindful of the culture that we have in different places. So for the culture map from Erin Meyer, I don't know if you read that book.
No.
It's such a gold mine of how to handle different culture, how to, for instance, I'm managing different nationalities. So that book is a gold mine to help me, be understanding more the nuances of different culture. And in a world that is a bit more complex, where macroeconomics are what they are, I think it's good to understand each other a bit better. So
that sounds brilliant. I'll be ordering that in about 30 seconds time.
Nice.
Well, thank you, Ben. I've really enjoyed our chat. So for those that want to find out more about you, obviously Shopify, what's the best way to do that and to reach out to you?
Well, they can definitely reach out through LinkedIn. That's definitely the platform I'm on. I'll be happy to answer any questions. Thanks a lot for having me. I enjoyed the chat, so thanks a lot.
No problem at all. I look forward to catching up with you again. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yes. Bye-bye.
If you enjoyed this episode, hit the subscribe or follow button wherever you are listening to this podcast. So you're always the first to know when a new episode is released. Have a fantastic day, and I'll see you on the next one.